Hi, I'm Diego Paris, an Imagineer with the Walt Disney Company. Disney parks are lands filled with much fantasy and magic. It's no wonder that many unique and interesting stories about the history of the parks live just beneath the surface. But beyond the magic lies a world of rich mythology. Now, for the first time, a program will be going behind the shroud of secrecy of Walt Disney Imagineering to help separate fact from fiction.
Oh, we're asked about the legends and myths every day. You know, there's always somebody curious who heard something from somebody.
Well, there's supposedly a whole bunch of tunnels that you can crawl or walk through on one side and then end up on a different part of the park.
I heard there's a whole city underground, actually.
One of those interesting legends that comes up again and again is, did Walt Disney live here? Did he have a private residence here at Disneyland?
Legend has it that Walt Disney himself once lived in an apartment built into the castle so that he can keep an eye on the construction as his theme park dream came true back in the early 1950s. Sleeping Beauty Castle is the centerpiece of Disneyland, acting as the gateway to the park's many lands and attractions. But some people say that Sleeping Beauty wasn't the only person calling this castle home. So, did Walt really have a home away from home in the castle, or not? Well, it so happens that Walt never had an apartment built into Sleeping Beauty Castle, but we do know that Walt had plans for a royal suite in Cinderella Castle at Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom, but it was never completed as designed. Instead, that space was used for entertainment purposes for over 35 years. But now, as part of Disney Parks' The Year of a Million Dreams celebration, the area has been converted into a royal suite. So, if Walt's apartment is not at Sleeping Beauty Castle, where is it? And where do we begin our search? Maybe some park guests can help us solve this mystery.
If I was Walt Disney, I'd probably live in Tomorrowland. If I were Walt, I'd put my house on top of Matterhorn.
If I were Walt Disney, I would put it on the Tower of Terror.
Yeah.
So far, we've looked into Cinderella Castle, Sleeping Beauty Castle, but we have yet to find Walt's apartment. But the story does not stop there. In fact, it starts here, where Disneyland begins, on Main Street, USA. And the second story of this building is one of the most tightly guarded places inside of all of Disneyland, Walt Disney's apartment.
It wasn't long after Disneyland got into its planning stages that he plotted out an actual apartment on Main Street above the fire station, right next to City Hall, where he could come in, say, after a long week at the studio, and camp out there on Friday night and be raring to go Saturday morning and spend a very productive weekend that I think he also just really enjoyed the fun of it.
Now, normally this area is completely off limits for guests, but today you're going to get an exclusive look at Walt's apartment by Disneyland tour guide Dean Balladad.
Well, hello everyone. My name is Dean. I'm one of the guest relations tour guides, and I'm very excited to share with you one of the best known, well-kept secrets here at Disneyland Park. It's Walt's apartment. This was one of the first buildings to be completed during the construction of Disneyland, and it was known that Walt Disney spent a lot of time here just checking over blueprints and expanding his dream of Disneyland Park. This is how the apartment looked like in its day, and it was used by Walt Disney and his family. You'll notice that there is a rose and green motif, and it was known that Lillian Disney herself liked a rose patterns. The apartment is decorated in a Victorian style. The original decorator was Emile Curry, and he was more than qualified because he had worked on movies such as Mary Poppins and Pollyanna, and as you can see, that Victorian style fit very well here on Main Street, USA. So this is the kitchenette here at Walt Disney's apartment, and you'll see that it's a very modest size, and it wasn't really meant to bake or cook, but just simply a pantry. And a lot of guests often ask us, what was Walt Disney's favorite snack item? Well, the answer to that lies in this piece here, and this was a sandwich press, and Walt Disney loved making grilled cheese sandwiches, and we're thrilled that we still have this here at the Disney apartment. Well, you'll notice that these day beds are our sofas, but this is the reveal underneath. They're mattresses, and when Walt Disney and Lillian Disney would stay the night, the covers would come off and these beds would pull out. And then, of course, these cabinets, these hidden cabinets, would suggest that you could have blankets, and you can also imagine that the grandchildren also have their coloring books and their board games to entertain themselves when they stay the night here at the apartment. Well, right below us is the Disneyland Firehouse. Of course, every Main Street USA had to have a firehouse. And interestingly enough, below us was a fire pole that extended up into the second floor of this apartment. And the fire pole was right around this area. And to this day, we don't know for certain if Walt Disney ever used it for a quick exit. Rumor has it that one of the reasons why the fire pole was sealed up is that two adventurous boys had shimmied up the pole and discovered this beautiful apartment, and luckily Walt Disney wasn't home to be disturbed. People often ask us, did Walt Disney have another apartment? Well, in fact, he did plan a second hideaway, and Walt Disney envisioned this as a second apartment because he and his family outgrew the smaller apartments.
Unfortunately, Walt passed away before the suite was finished, and his family decided not to have it completed. Today, it's home to the Disney Gallery.
We're here on the second floor of New Orleans Square. Right here, we've got concept sketches for the apartment. This is an early concept sketch for the dining room. Now, if you look at this great room, you'll see how ornate it is. Everywhere from floor to ceiling, we've got molding all over the place. This sketch right here, that was the concept sketch for the formal sitting area. Let's go and take a look out at the courtyard. It's one of the most quiet spots in Disneyland. In fact, when you're there, you actually kind of forget that you're in Disneyland. Occasionally, you'll hear some growls from the Jungle Cruise, and Fantasmic, you hear some of the firework explosions and stuff like that. But for the most part, this is a great quiet spot where the guests can sit and relax. Now, one of the coolest things is an autographed photo of Walt Disney thanking us cast members and stores. So it's something that's very special to all of us because we take Walt to great heart. We love what Walt did with the place, and those of us up here in the gallery get to walk in the steps where he was going to entertain his guests.
You know, someone who has a very special memory of this apartment is Mouseketeer Bobby Burgess. He was here at Disneyland with Walt on opening day.
Coming to Disneyland is like coming home because we opened the park back in '55. You know, we came dancing out of the Mickey Mouse Club Theater. Some of them had horses around their waist, but I went jitterbugging with Mouseketeer Sharon, who's still a good friend. Then we were in a big parade around the hub here. There was an enthusiastic crowd, and now Art Linkletter had to introduce us. Coming out of the Mickey Mouse Club Theater are the dancing children. We were calling them the Mouseketeers because it was July 17th, and the Mickey Mouse Club didn't go on the air until October 3rd of '55. So nobody really knew who we were, but here we were, you know, singing and dancing. I always like the story that Mouseketeer Sharon tells about Walt Disney at the apartment. We were in the hub here at Disneyland, and Sharon happened to look up into the window of the apartment, and there was Walt Disney surveying his domain with a smile on his face, but a tear trickling down his cheek. So that was a touching moment, I think.
Well, you know, when I first started here, Walt Disney was still around. It was 1965, and I would come in early in the morning to get the Carnation ice cream shop set up. And after it opened, of course, the only time that Walt had where he wasn't, you know, literally surrounded by thousands and thousands of guests was the morning hours before Disneyland was open to the public. So I'd be out there stacking cones. And while I was doing that, before the park opened, I'd often see Walt walking the grounds. There was a truck out in front of our ice cream thing, and Walt would crank that thing up, and he'd drive it all around the park in the morning. And A lot of people thought that was strange, but you've got to look at Disneyland as the world's biggest toy. And here was the world's biggest kid, Walt Disney, and it was the only time when he could have it to himself. So he'd spend the night, get up at the crack of dawn, and then go out and play in it before it opened to the public. And I thought it was rather, really rather charming. Now, the rumor has it, there's a lamp that to this day is in the window right in front of Walt's apartment, right facing Main Street above the fire station there.
You can see here that we have this famous lamp, and to our Disney fans, that is the eternal spirit of Walt Disney. And it was known that when Walt Disney was in the park playing, he would turn on the light because he was home for the day.
Just the perception of Walt spending a night in the park, it was like your grandpa was down on Main Street.
And inadvertently, that sent out an awareness to our cast members here at Disneyland that the boss was home. Everyone be on their best behavior.
Whether that rumor is true or not, I think what it means for me today is when I look up there and I see that lamp burning, I realize this is the only park, and we now have over 10 parks around the world. This is the only one that Walt Disney ever saw. And the spirit of Walt Disney is still here.
After Walt's death, the lamp was turned off, but it was rumored that the light mysteriously flickered on and off at times. A little spooky. Sounds like something we might check out on a future episode of Disney's Fact or Fiction. So, there you have it, another Disney fact. Walt did live in Disneyland from time to time. By the way, on your next visit to the Disneyland Resort, don't forget to look up at the window above the fire department. You'll see this little shining light in the window, and you'll know that Walt Disney's still keeping a close eye on the happiest place on Earth. Hope you will join us next time as we explore the many secrets of Disney's fact or fiction.